welcome back to our math review. So once again, on my previous video I mentioned I'm going to start adding some larger numbers so that we can have more work with the place values with hundreds, tens, and ones. So let's begin. Let's first read the number. 245. 245. So we have a 2 in the hundred spot. We say 200. So we're going to make two large squares. And then we have 45. So we have 4 tens. And we have how many ones? 5 ones. Now, we're going to group them into pairs to see if our number is odd or even. So this last one doesn't have a pair, so that means our number is 245 is odd. Alright, moving on to hundreds, tens, and ones. Give you a moment, pause the video, and remember the number is 245, and then fill in the hundreds, tens, and ones. Do that now. Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly. In the number 245, we have 2 hundreds, we have 4 tens, and 5 ones. Should look something like that. Then using this chart, our hundreds, tens, and ones chart, we're going to go into our expanded form. So right now, see if you can take the number 245 and write it in expanded form. Do that now. Pause the video and do that now. And so what you should have, we have 200, so 200s, 100, 200. Counting by hundreds. Then we count by tens. We have 4 tens, so we're counting by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40. 4 tens is the same as 40. And then we have our 5 ones, and that's just 5. So the expanded form for 245, it's 200 plus 40 plus 5 equals 245. All right, now moving on to our minus 10, plus 10, minus 1, plus 1. So using the number 245, we're going to minus 10. Remember, the hundred stays the same, 200s, and the ones are going to stay the same. Notice how I try to line them up so that I'm really seeing the difference in the place value that I'm focusing on. So because it's minus 10, I'm focusing on the tens place value. So we have 4 tens. We're going to take 1 10 away, and now we have 3 tens. So 245 minus 10 is 235. Moving on to plus 10. So once again, we're not touching the hundreds, we're not doing anything with the hundreds, so they stay the same. And the ones are staying the same. So then we have 4 tens. We're going to add another 10, and now we have 5 tens. So 245 plus 10 more is 255. Now we're doing 245 minus 1. So we're going to be working in the ones place value. Ones place value. So the hundreds and the tens will stay the same. So we have 5 ones. We take 1 away. We have 4 ones. So 245 minus 1 equals 244. Now we're going to do 245 plus 1. So once again, the hundreds stay the same. The tens stay the same. So we have 5 ones, and we add another 1, and we have 6 ones. So 246. Moving on to missing number. So pause the video and do this now. Go. And I'm hoping you filled all 3 in. So going through 0 plus 9 equals 9. Blank plus 1 equals 9, 8. 8 plus 1 equals 9. 7 plus blank equals 9. 7 plus 2 equals 9. Moving on to balance both sides. So remember, you need to find out what 5 plus 2 equals. We're putting it down here. And then we're deciding another equation that equals the same amount and making sure that that number equals the same on both sides. So do that now. Pause the video, do that, and then come back when you have done. Okay, so when you pause the video, you should have all of this completed. So I'm just going to go through it quickly. 5 plus 2 equals 7. Now, I'm just going to do the reversal of these. So just get an extra practice noticing that when you add, these numbers can be in any spot and it stays the same. So we're going to do 2 plus 5 equals 7. So 7 equals 7, and that is true. Moving on to fact families with teen numbers. So we have 17, 10, and 7. So I'm noticing that 17 is the larger of the three numbers. So this is the whole. And then we have part. Remember, when we add, we're putting the parts to get to the whole. And when we subtract, we're taking the whole and minusing one of the parts to get to the other part. So right now, I want you to fill in all four of those equations now, and then come back and we'll do them quickly. Alright, so just hoping that you have all four of these completed. And if not, you could just do it with me, but I'm going to go a little bit faster than when I was just going step by step. So we're going to take our two parts, our 10 and our 7, and we're going to add those together. 10 plus 7 is going to equal our whole number, the 17. Then we're just going to reverse these, and we're going to start with 7 plus 10 equals 17. Then when we move into our subtraction, our minus, we're taking our whole number. Larger number always goes first. 17 minus 10 equals 7. And then once again on our other subtraction, 17 minus 7 equals 10. All right. So now moving on to whole part. So we are just seeing here, we have the two parts. We need to find out the whole. So we're going to take these two numbers and put them together to get our whole. So I can use the equation on the side to help me. 10 plus 6 equals 16. So now I found out what my whole is. So I could put that in there now. Now I can do my subtraction. Remember, when we do the subtraction, we always start with the larger whole number. So 16, and this time I'm going to minus this side, this part, 6. 16 minus 6 is going to equal 10. On this one, greater than, less than, equal, pause the video and complete this now. Go. Okay, so we come back, and I'm just going to go through this quickly. We touch the tens. They are the same. 3 tens and 36, 3 tens and 39, so we jump to the ones. We have 6 ones and 36, 6 ones and 39. 9 has more ones, so 39 is greater than 36. But the way we read it is 36 is less than 39. Then we have 114 and 114. They are the same, so that means that they are equal. And then on our last one, we touch the tens, and I notice there are 2 tens in 28 and 1 10 in 19, so 28 is greater than 19, and that's how we would read it. We would say 28 is greater than 19. Put them in order. So put them in order, pause the video, put them in order, and come back. Alright, so what I had said in my last one is I was going to, instead of using the 120 chart, another strategy would be is using those tens and ones. So I see in 26 there are 2 tens, 24 there are 2 tens, and 16 there is 1 10, and 31, there's 3. So 16 out of the 4 has the lower amount of 10. So I'm going to go there with the 16. That's the smallest one. We're always going from smallest to largest. And then we are looking at, okay, 26 has 2 10s, 24 has 2 10s, and 31 has 3 10s. So we're not going to worry about the 31. We're going to focus on the ones with the same 2 10s. Then we're going to jump over, and we notice 6 1s in 26, 4 1s in 24. So the 4 1s is smaller. So we're going to be putting 24 first. Then we go back, 2 10s for 26. And then our last number, 31, is the largest number out of these 4. All right, moving on to our shapes. So you pause the video and complete the shapes, the fractions. All right, so looking at our circle, we're going to cut this into 2 equal halves, and we're going to color 1/2 of the circle. On the rectangle, we're also going to cut it into 2 equal halves, and that one's not so equal. And we're going to color in 2 of those halves. And if you might remember from one of the other videos, what does it mean when the number above and the number below are the same? That is the whole. So we colored in the whole rectangle, the whole thing. Moving on to our clock. So we have to look at the clock, and first we have to identify which hand we start with. So we have the smaller hand, and we have the larger hand. So which hand do we start with? I hope you said the smaller hand. We always start with the smallest one first. And what is that called? Is that our hour or is that our minute? And it's our hour. So when our hour hand is pointing at the number, that's the number we're going to be using. So it's pointing at the 9. So we go with hour first. And then we see our large hand. Do you remember what that is called? Is that the hour or the minute? The minute. And when the minute hand points to the 12, we're going to write o'clock. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. And moving on to our data. So we have shapes. I always go through and I always make a nice line at the top and put the number above it just so I can see the number with the amounts. So we have 5 circles, 8 triangles, and 2 squares for our data for today. So let's move into our questions with our data. So it says, how many more triangles than circles? So, looking at that problem, are we going to be adding or subtracting, and how do we know? We're going to subtract because we see that more and more than, that comparing. We want to find the difference. So when we're looking for the difference, we always have to start when we're doing the subtraction with the larger number first. So we have the triangle and we have the circle. So we'll focus on those today. We have triangle, we have 8, and we have circle with 5. So 8 we're going to start with. 8 minus 5 equals, solve that. And you should have gotten 3 more triangles than circles. Now moving on to which has more, circles or squares. So first we have to identify which one has more. Is it the circles or the squares? So let's go back to our data chart. We have 5 circles and we have 2 squares. So we notice that this one is much lower. So there are more circles. So we're going to circle that. And now we're going to figure out to see how many more. More and then or, finding that difference. So when we're trying to compare to see what's different, which one has more of one or fewer, we're finding the difference. So today on this problem, we're looking for more, and we will be using subtraction. And we said that the circle is the larger one, so we're starting with that one. So we're going to write 5 minus 2 and solve. And you should have gotten 3 more circles than the square. So there's 3 more circles than the squares. And on to our next one. We see how many fewer squares than triangles. So that fewer and that than is telling us that we are going to subtract. So we're going to be minusing. So once again, we have to always start with a larger number. So we're looking at squares and we're looking at triangles. So let's do that. And I notice triangles has 8, squares have 2. So we're going to actually be minusing 8 minus 2. And let's solve that. 8 minus 2, so do that now. And there are 6 fewer squares than triangles. 6 fewer squares than triangles. Next, we're looking at how many triangles and squares. That and is telling us what? That we are putting them together. So we're going to be using our plus. And once again on our chart, we have 8 for our triangles and 2 for our squares. So we're going to be adding those two together this time. 8 plus 2. And solve. And it is a 10 fact. Now our last problem for today. How many in all on the chart? That in all tells me we are going to add. So we're going to be adding the 8 plus the 2 plus the 5. So I see my 10 fact there already near each other, so that's easier for me. 10, I took those 2, and I'm going to bring everything down that I did not use, and then solve those. And 10 plus 5 equals 15. 8 plus 2 plus 5 more equals 15 shapes on the chart. All right, thank you for joining me for our math review. See you tomorrow. Bye.